Would you hire a wolf to guard your sheep? No? Me neither. That's just good sense, right? But I've never accused the NDP of exercising good sense, now have I? Now, the Alberta NDP have hired a former Alberta Union of Public Employees, or AUPE, staff negotiator to negotiate on behalf of the government with, wait for it, the AUPE. Yeah, there's no conflict of interest there or anything. Kevin Davidiak was a staff negotiator for the AUPE, a union of mostly government employees whose contracts are up for negotiation soon. In fact, as of yesterday, he was still listed as a staff negotiator at AUPE. He's made a career out of getting what he can out of our government on behalf of our bloated public sector unions. Yet, the NDP think he's the right man for the job because of his vast experience at the bargaining table. Just watch.
Playing both sides against taxpayers is an interesting definition of good value. Mr. Speaker, Albertans won't put up with sham bargaining, given the Premier's chief advisor on labour negotiations appears to be in a gross conflict of interest. Fewer issues are more important than the sound financial management of this province than having proper and effective negotiations with our government sector unions. Will the Premier admit that this hire was a serious mistake and dismiss Mr. Davidiak?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The chief negotiator who's been hired has over 3 decades of experience on management side as well as labour union side. He will be able to be tough but fair and make sure that our labour negotiations are properly done. My role as Minister of Labour, as a regulator, is to make sure that that stays the case. And we know that during these challenging times, this labour negotiator will be able to work soundly with all parties.
Now, as an Albertan, do you feel like you're going to have someone who will bargain hard with the unions to defend your pocketbook and the bottom line? Because I sure don't. Davidiak has spent years making sure our public sector stayed the most expensive one amongst all the provinces. Now, what do you think will really change now? But this union government overlap thing isn't new with Rachel Notley's NDP government. It's probably more of a feature than a bug with the NDP. Mark Wells was a former communications strategist for the AUPE. Guess what? He's now the head of the Alberta government's nonpartisan communications wing, the Public Affairs Bureau. This year, he will be making $160,000 to $223,000. And then there's that time the NDP named their very first budget the Alberta Way. Guess what? The Alberta Way is an AUPE slogan. The union used it in a series of protests against the PC government in 2014. In fact, the AUPE registered a website of the same name, the Alberta Way. I said a few months back that before the NDP are tossed unceremoniously from office in the next election, that we may not be able to tell where the unions end and the government begins. It's happening way sooner than that. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid.